The controversy began with a single sentence that ignited an entire firestorm. Aaliyah Wilson stepped to the microphone after Game 4 and, with all cameras rolling, uttered the words, "special whistle." It was a dig aimed squarely at Aaliyah Boston, who had earned 13 trips to the free throw line. To Wilson, that kind of stat line could only mean one thing: preferential treatment. But to anyone who watched closely, what it really meant was dominance, discipline, and a team refusing to back down. That one phrase was all it took to set social media ablaze with accusations, memes, and suspicion. And it wasn't just Wilson. Becky Hammon, the fiery head coach of the Las Vegas Aces, looked absolutely exasperated throughout the post-game press conference. Her tone carried less strategy and more irritation, as if the script had suddenly flipped against her team. She didn't dive into game plans, defensive adjustments, or even breakdowns of execution. Instead, her words were raw and short. They shot 34 free throws, and we shot 11. Next question. It was the type of response that screamed not just frustration but dependence, a reliance on officiating that many fans had whispered about all season. The irony in Wilson's special whistle accusation is that it ignored the bigger truth. For 3 straight games, Vegas had enjoyed the soft calls. Every bump against Wilson had been a foul. Every slide from Kelsey Mitchell was somehow a whistle. Indiana spent the early part of the series suffocated by biased officiating that seemed to lean toward the defending champions. But when Game 4 finally turned in Indiana's favor, when they attacked with purpose and forced the issue in the paint, suddenly Vegas couldn't handle being on the receiving end. What Wilson called special, fans saw as overdue justice. But the drama doesn't end with one complaint. That simple phrase opened the door to deeper questions. Was the WNBA commissioner truly overseeing a fair contest? Was this just another case of Vegas controlling narratives when the whistles suited them, only to cry foul when the tables turned? Whispers of bribery, favoritism, and corruption began swirling in fan forums and social media timelines. The conspiracy grew louder when statistics showed fouls had been even across the entire series. It wasn't bias. It wasn't sabotage. It was the balance correcting itself. Yet, the accusation stuck, staying in the air with tension, and so the narrative split. To one side, ACES fans felt robbed, cheated by officials who had supposedly handed Indiana the game. To the other, Fever fans finally saw fairness after enduring games of tilted officiating. The tension wasn't just on the court, it was in every comment section, every viral post, every podcast dissecting every play. This wasn't just basketball anymore. It had become a scandal, a question of integrity in the league. The stage wasn't just set for a deciding Game 5. It was set for the reputation of the WNBA itself to be put under the brightest, harshest lights. The real spark for Indiana's surge wasn't favoritism, though. It was aggression. From the opening tip, the Fever drove relentlessly into the paint, attacking the rim at every chance. Aaliyah Boston planted herself deep under basket, forcing Vegas to defend possession after possession in the trenches. Guards like Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims weren't settling for jump shots. They were forcing contact, pushing the tempo, and dictating the flow of the game. When you play that kind of basketball, the whistles follow naturally. That wasn't a referee conspiracy. That was strategy, executed perfection, and the results spoke louder than excuses. But the Aces didn't play the same way. Outside of Wilson's isolation-heavy offense, Vegas leaned on mid-range jumpers and contested looks that rarely forced the referee's hand. They weren't driving into bodies or drawing fouls through physicality. Instead, they were relying on finesse, the kind of offense that doesn't put pressure on the officials to blow the whistle. And when the Fever punished them for it, the Aces unraveled. The foul disparity wasn't proof of corruption. It was proof of contrast. Indiana was built to grind inside, while Vegas settled. The scoreboard and the stat sheet reflected exactly that truth. Still, the optics looked brutal for Vegas. 3 starters, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young, and Wilson, each carrying 5 fouls, left the Aces walking on eggshells. Every aggressive move risked disqualification, and Hammond's rotation shrank under the weight of fear. Instead of attacking, Vegas played hesitant, second-guessing every drive, every closeout. Meanwhile, Indiana smelled blood. They posted up relentlessly, hunted mismatches, and exploited foul trouble with surgical precision. It wasn't favoritism that tied Vegas' hands. It was the Fever refusing to let up. Indiana wasn't waiting for whistles. They were creating the pressure that forced them, flipping the entire psychology of the series overnight. And when Hammon added her own critical mistake, only fueled the fire. Late in the game, desperate to stop Indiana's momentum, she called a timeout her team didn't have. That mental lapse handed the Fever a technical free throw, a gift that widened the gap when every possession mattered. Fans exploded with disbelief. Commentators shook their heads. How could one of the league's brightest coaches collapse under pressure like that? In that moment, the whispers of unfair officiating looked even more hollow. The Aces weren't victims. They were unraveling, cracking under the weight of a team that simply outworked them. The meltdown continued to play out not just on the scoreboard, but in body language. Hammon's exasperated shrugs, Wilson's sarcastic comments, players looking to referees instead of focusing on execution. Every camera shot told a story of frustration boiling over. By the time the final buzzer sounded, the Aces weren't beaten by a referee's whistle. They were beaten by their own unraveling. The Fever had exposed not just weaknesses in their game plan, but cracks in their mentality. This wasn't about fouls anymore. This was about a defending champion looking vulnerable, their dominance slipping away in real time under playoff spotlight. Aaliyah Boston was the undeniable centerpiece of that transformation. From the opening possession, she locked horns with Wilson, the reigning MVP, and refused to back down. Every steal, every rebound, every bucket was a message. She wasn't intimidated. Her stat line of 24 points, 14 rebounds, and 5 assists was impressive on paper, but it was her presence that defined the game. She wasn't just scoring. She was dictating the terms of battle in the paint. Every time Vegas tried to bully her, she held firm. Every whistle she drew was a product of that relentless control, not favoritism. The physicality of that matchup was brutal. Wilson, usually smooth and efficient, was forced into a grinding war. Every catch was a struggle. Every shot required maximum effort. On paper, her 31 points looked dominant, but anyone watching knew the truth. It was a taxing, exhausting performance. Boston's defense forced her out of rhythm, dragged her away from her sweet spots, and made her fight for every single basket. By the fourth quarter, the fatigue was visible. Wilson's legs slowed. Her teammates failed to pick up the slack. Boston had drained not just her opponent's energy, but the Aces' confidence. That constant punishment in the paint tilted the entire balance of the game. When Wilson couldn't dominate inside, Vegas had nowhere else to turn. Their perimeter shooting faltered. Their bench struggled to find rhythm. The entire offensive system collapsed under the weight of Indiana's interior pressure. Meanwhile, Boston was efficient, patient, and poised. She didn't rush. She didn't force. She absorbed double teams and calmly dished to shooters, racking up assists that showcase her evolving vision. The MVP duel wasn't just a battle of points. It was a battle of control, and Boston had seized it, dragging momentum firmly toward Indiana. And let's not forget the emotional weight behind Boston's performance. She was still a young star, untested at this level of postseason warfare, yet she carried herself like a seasoned veteran. Every possession became a showcase of composure. Every rebound was a declaration that she belonged among the game's elite. For Fever fans, it was a moment of vindication, a glimpse of franchise cornerstone they've been waiting for. For Vegas, it was a nightmare. Their trusted formula of feeding Wilson and watching her dominate was suddenly obsolete. Boston had flipped the script, and the ripple effect sent shockwaves through the league. While Boston anchored the interior, Kelsey Mitchell delivered the knockout punches from perimeter. With 25 points, she became the Fever's closer, the player who put the game beyond doubt. She attacked relentlessly, pulled up confidently, and drilled big shots under pressure. But her brilliance went beyond scoring. Her 4 assists showed her maturity, punishing Vegas whenever they overloaded on her drives. It was a type of performance that drew Caitlin Clark herself to lean over from the sidelines and whisper, "Kelsey, unreal." That wasn't just praise. That was recognition. From one star to another, that Mitchell had seized her moment. The context made Mitchell's performance even more dramatic. She had seen years of heartbreak in Indiana, playing through season after season of futility. This time was different. This time, she refused to let the Fever fold. Every drive, every three, every clutch free throw was fueled by that history. For fans who had suffered through endless losses, Mitchell's performance felt like redemption. It wasn't just scoring. It was leadership. It was defiance. It was rewriting the identity of the franchise in real time. And in those final minutes, She wasn't just a scorer, she was a heartbeat, the closer Indiana had always needed. Lexie Hull's impact wasn't measured in points, but in grit. With only 7 points on the box score, her night could have gone unnoticed. But her defense told a completely different story. For 38 minutes, she shadowed Jackie Young, one of Vegas's most reliable weapons, and smothered her into frustration. Hull grabbed rebounds, jumped passing lanes, and even blocked a shot. Her body carried the pain of a nagging back injury, yet she dove for loose balls, battled bigger players, and shifted the energy with her hustle. Every play reminded fans that defense, too, can define legacies in the postseason. And when Hull wasn't on the court, the difference was immediate. Vegas gained rhythm. Young found space. The ACES offense began to click. But the moment Hull returned, the clamps tightened. The defensive commitment was unrelenting, and Indiana fed off it. Her effort didn't just inspire teammates. It demoralized opponents. It was a reminder that grit doesn't always come from stars. Sometimes it comes from role players willing to sacrifice everything for one goal. Her performance will be remembered less for her stats and more for the spirit she injected into the Fever, a spirit that made belief spread like wildfire. Odyssey Sims added another critical layer to Indiana's triumph. After struggling in Game 3, many doubted her ability to step up when it mattered most. But in Game 4, she silenced every critic. 18 points on efficient shooting, slicing through Vegas's defense like a knife. She adjusted, she attacked, and she made the right reads. Her confidence radiated, forcing the Aces to stretch their defense thin. That allowed Boston more freedom inside, and Mitchell more space on the perimeter. Sims wasn't just a contributor, she was a catalyst, proving that even in adversity, reinvention is possible when the lights are brightest. Sha Petty's contributions flew under the radar, but were equally vital. With just 7 points and a handful of rebounds, her stat line seemed modest, but her timing was impeccable. She hit big shots whenever Vegas tried to mount a run. She steadied possessions when the Fever risked unraveling. Her veteran presence was a calm in the storm, the quiet leadership that kept everyone focused. In a game defined by chaos, her poise stood out. Sometimes the difference between winning and losing isn't the star who scores 30. It's the role player who holds the rope when pressure mounts. Together, this collective effort transformed Indiana from underdogs into legitimate contenders. Missing stars like Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Chloe BBY, the Fever weren't supposed to be here. Yet, through sheer resilience and belief, they pushed the defending champions to the brink. Every player had a role, every moment had weight. And as the buzzer sounded on Game 4, the scoreboard didn't just show a win, it showed proof of identity. Indiana wasn't a fluke. They were a team forged in adversity, united in purpose. The accusations of bribery and special whistles couldn't erase what fans had seen with their own eyes. Now comes the final test. Game 5 in Las Vegas. A win-or-go-home showdown with everything on the line. Michelob Ultra Arena will be deafening. The Aces are desperate, their dynasty teetering on collapse. The Fever face not just an opponent, but a storm of noise, pressure, and legacy. Can Boston once again plant herself in the paint and control the interior? Can Mitchell stay hot and force Vegas to stretch thin? Can Hull, Sims, and Petty repeat their relentless grit? This is more than a game. This is a battle for identity, a fight to rewrite the future of the WNBA. Coach Stephanie White captured the essence of this team perfectly. She spoke of adversity, of unity, of a group that never backed down despite injuries and doubts. Her words weren't coach speak. They were authentic. It's about who's in this locker room, she said. That mantra has carried the Fever this far. It's what fuels them heading into a hostile Game 5. The Aces may have home court. They may have experience. But Indiana has something far more dangerous. They have belief. They have hunger. And they have a squad that refuses to let excuses define them. That's the story Vegas now fears. The final buzzer, Game 5, won't just decide who advances. It will decide whose narrative survives. If Vegas wins, the special whistle excuse lives on, a deflection that masks cracks in their dynasty. If Indiana wins, the story shifts forever. No longer underdogs. No longer victims of officiating. Instead, conquerors, silencing critics in the loudest arena imaginable. The whispers of bribery and corruption won't save Vegas. The scoreboard will. And if Indiana executes, the defending champions will fall not because of officials, But because a hungry, determined Fever refused to let their destiny be stolen one more time.